Welcome to Lake Town.
Home of the hits!
This fucking asshole yapping at me. Nobody gives a fuck because it's fucking Lake Town. Nobody fucking cares! I hate this level. This level is the most boring thing.
Really stiff.
What exactly is the plot of this though?
It's early hair animation.
I can't help but always wonder what it must be like for game developers years after the fact, when their games have probably had a chance to settle and be, like, made part of the cultural mindset. Like, how do they feel when the guy who's helped make, write, and design Beardo and just sees that everyone loathes them? It's like, I tried so hard to make him quirky and fun, and everyone hates them.
Yeah, that thing that I picked up right there in the street, that is the thing that I could have gone 10 minutes out of my way to get in the last level. It is directly in front of me, the beginning of this level, so why the fuck would you go get it there?
Do they stack?
No! It is the same goddamn scroll. It has no consequence in the last level. Why was it there?
His fathers were kings of Dale until the town was destroyed by the dragon Smaug.
Yep.
Do you know what steak and kidney pie tastes like?
Steak and kidney pie?
Yeah.
Steak and kidney pie. Okay.
I know it's in short supply since it has organ meat, and they haven't been hunting organs since they banned.
You already made that joke.
Let's play. Yeah, but Blake hasn't heard it.
That's true. I haven't.
But our viewers have.
The elves of Mirk distrust strangers.
Well, it's not like GT repeats the same joke over and over again. So.
Hey, I just like it.
Yeah, this is like variation on the piano joke.
Here I am legitimately trying to think it all out. Because
they banned the organ. You can't get organ meat anymore since they banned the hunting of organs.
So, really, Lake Town is terrible. So we are not really going to give two shits about our commentary devolving into absolute shit talk. So.
And the only place I know they do organized piano hunting is in Oregon.
Yeah,
this level for over an hour.
The piano hunting trade was banned in the 1980s after tired of losing children.
I'm sorry, I know your viewers don't understand or care about this, and I normally really respect the fidelity of this Let's Play by never doing anything that's like a non sequitur or has no informational value for the people watching.
Of course.
But I am still just absolutely chuffed that I got like $2 off that fucking Charmander.
Yeah, since we took our last break from recording, TT has found a Charmander plush that has just thrilled him to death.
One of the Charmander plushes that last night in a weird haze I watched on eBay. The eBay seller gave me a special offer with a discount. It's like, fuck yeah, another unique Charmander to add to my growing horde.
That sounds delightful.
It's a foot tall and it's got a sweet face.
You're a dragon that hoards Charmanders.
Yes.
Now, I'm new to this Let's Play. You mentioned Lake Town. Is this a Hobbit game?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
This is the Hobbit game.
The Hobbit. Wait. Like a current generation Hobbit game?
It was from the PlayStation 2 era.
It was made in 2003.
Okay.
It was made by Sierra Software, which should tell you exactly what you need to know about the game.
That's a name I have not heard in a long time.
Sierra.
They used to make point-and-click games, but they had the rights to the Hobbit games, and that was directly after the Lord of the Rings came out. So they're like, hey, money printing.
You know, shit, now that I think about it, with like the obscenely difficult and annoying mini games and the collectathon aspect, it really is sort of similar to Leisure Suit Larry on the PS2.
It's a Sierra game, yeah. You can tell.
Oh my god, you're right. I have only played ever one. I never beat it. I sort of stopped caring after, decided, hey, this is just
Look.
Like the old point-and-click games, like the King's Quest and the Space Quest and the Police Quest and Quest for Glory. I played those when I was little, and they were pretty good. They had a really great story to them, and, you know, they were funny when you died. They were funny when you died.
Sierra struggled to adapt to the times, and that led to their demise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Telltale adapted the Sierra style for the times, and then killed themselves anyway.
Yeah, but that's a whole other video that we could potentially talk about for 97 hours. But,
Well,
we will
we're
do
not
that.
actually talking about this video right now because it's fucking Lake Town and nobody cares!
What do you do in this level?
You do this! You follow people with your ring forever.
Gypsy around for no fucking reason, apparently.
It's just that in the book, the whole point of Lake Town was, hey, we can actually eat again and rest and eat cereals.
God,
So in this version of the game, Bard is an absolutely useless captain of the guard, so he has to have this tiny fucking asshole follow another asshole.
So, Bard useless.
This, you know what this vaguely reminds me of, in the most strange sort of way? There were a couple of sequences in Halo 5 where the game tried to shift up what it was doing by having you play quote-unquote open world township levels where you were exploring, quote-unquote exploring and trying to ascertain clues as to the location of some major plot point or NPC or the Master Chief or something, who is both a person and a plot point in that game, so he gets to be both at the same time. And it was sort of like, it was this weird combination of you were technically playing the game, but you also weren't playing the game. You could move your character around, but you couldn't meaningfully interact with any part of the world.
Blake, you just partially blew my mind because I didn't realize there was a Halo 5. I thought 3 was the last one.
Oh,
Spin-off game? There were 5 Halos?
There more than that.
There have been 5 mainline Halo games, 2 first-person spin-offs, and 2 real-time strategy spin-offs.
See, like, I remember, like, Halo 1 and Halo 2 and Halo 3, those are all huge deals, and my friends talked about them a lot. And I never played any of them because I didn't have an Xbox.
Oh, I was one of those nerds, too.
I thought I would have heard if there was more.
That should kind of tell you something. God, I don't want to completely derail the entire point of the video.
You do.
Feel free.
Okay, brief Halo history lesson. Because I was there. I was there, Gandalf.
Yes, that is your side to the topic at hand.
There we go. I was there. Okay, so Bungie eventually left Microsoft, the main wheelhouse that housed the Halo license. Bungie left Microsoft basically with one requirement. Okay, you have to make us one last Halo game. So Bungie made a prequel because they thought after they left and they would leave Halo behind that there would be no more Halo games ever again.
Well, that was foolish.
Yeah, I know, it was just foolish. So they thought they would bring it full circle. The series had ended. The series had ended, and they were going to do a prequel, basically setting up everything from that would lead into Halo 1. It was a nice poetic sort of send-off. You got to. It was well done, well operated.
That was Halo Reach, right?
That was Halo Reach, where we got to where we would essentially play out the fall of the UNSC's military hub world, essentially their stronghold, and it played out sort of like an alien invasion story plotline thing. It was neat. There was some elements of space stuff. We learned that Bungie can still falter a lot when it comes to actually making characters, which is consequently proven time and again. Every time Bungie tries to make a narrative, they tend to have one actually good character, and then everyone else is just the most boring bog standard. We need to fill this role/archetype you could possibly imagine, and somehow it gets worse each time. I don't understand how they do it. But anyway, Bungie leaves Microsoft. We think the Halo series is done. We hear that Microsoft has assembled a brand new development studio cobbled together out of former Bungie employees, people from BioWare, people from all of these other different studios, and that they're going to make a new Halo trilogy, and that there's going to be a whole new series of Microsoft-only Halo games. They essentially made a whole development studio just for the sake of making more Halo games. And their first game was Halo 4. A game that was like touted the return of the Master Chief in Cortana, and
I remember liking it.
It's fun. It has a really interesting core idea that is left in the dust for traditional first-person space shooter garbage.
Good evening.
You had a really neat emotional core of the Master Chief in Cortana. The Master Chief is essentially, and finally they acknowledged this thanks to the writers, the former BioWare writers who know how to write characters, thank the good lord. Master Chief is essentially a machine at this point, and his artificial intelligence companion, Cortana, essentially is more human than him, with like more thoughts and feelings. And the emotional center of the story is, as an artificial intelligence, Cortana essentially is running at the end of her lifetime. She's becoming more corrupted, losing data, is unable to compose herself, and is essentially going to just defragment. So she's facing genuine mortality. And the Master Chief has never confronted anything like this. Every problem that he's ever faced, you can shoot your way out of. So the creeping inevitability of the death of the only thing that he's ever actually cared about, as far as we the players are concerned, is a really neat thing to look at. Like, wow, that's actually a really neat emotional core to see how this, like, super awesome badass guy that we've known for over a decade, practically at this point, how is he gonna confront this problem? Where it's like, you know, seeing that, and there's hints of that in there. But it also needs to be a first-person shooter, so they just they dust off some enemies from the previous games for marketability, and now we also fight robots who are like prehistoric humans who were turned into robots by another set of prehistoric aliens. So that we have something to shoot at, and it's all muddled in, and we have a new villain of the week, and he's like gonna destroy humanity again because we need that to happen. And that little wonderful emotional core of these two characters interacting is essentially turned into a B plot. It's like, ah.
Oh, it's the return of the hot pants goblins, by the way.
Holy shit! What the fuck are they doing?
Guys, why did you let me Google Hobbit dinner again?
We didn't let you do nothing. Like, you would have stopped if we didn't.
Anyways, go on with the Halo.
So Halo 4 comes out. It's moderately successful. It tried to update the Halo formula, bring more contemporary shooting mechanics into it. I think. Actually, wait, no. I'm mixing them all up. Oh my god. It tries to update some stuff. It does moderately decently at that. But it also tries to modernize the art style too much, and it starts becoming more generic. The classic Master Chief look is thrown into the garbage in favor of essentially trying to rebuild him from the ground up and essentially destroying all of that simple iconicness that he had in his design. Yes, his helmet was a motocross BXM helmet, but it also worked fine. Like, okay, I know what that looks like, I can draw that from memory. They decided to throw that in the garbage. Halo 5 Guardians comes out, and this admittedly has a really neat marketing setup. Like, it's marketed very well and it's genuinely intriguing. It presents the idea of Master Chief having gone rogue, and now we have to track him down as another set of characters, discover what he's doing, and like there's this dual narrative thing that is presented in marketing where it's like, ooh, what side's real? Who's actually telling the truth to this? And it's like, whoa, just big mystery. And then when we get the game, we discovered that all of that was a blatant goddamn lie. The marketing team essentially took 1% of the aspect of the story, and then was like, okay, this is the only interesting thing that happens in this entire goddamn game. Let's just have that be the marketing. The real story is the worst sort of fan fiction you can imagine. It's like, here's a new group of Spartans. They're all super badass and cool, and they're led by this new guy who's even like as cool and badass as the Master Chief, maybe even more. It's like so awesome and cool. It's got like this new badass new armor that has like rockets in it all over the place, and it's like it's like imagine if someone like wrote a Star Trek like fanfic and they wanted to like be edgy with it, so they decided to have like Kirk like try to go rogue from Starfleet, and they just suddenly pulled some new captain we had never heard of who's supposed to be like just as good as Kirk at everything that he does, sort of deal. It's the equivalent of that, where it's like, oh god, that's really lame and obvious what you're trying to do. You're trying to make us care about a character we had never heard of, who apparently was in one of the books, but nobody reads the Halo books because they're garbage.
Hey, not all of them.
Not all of them. Not all
Halo
of them.
Sex with the Antichrist is a very good book, and I need you to rescind your comment.
I want to add.
Tries to make us care about this guy we know virtually nothing about, and tries to convince us in very little screen time that he's comparable to the Master Chief, and it just does not work. We also subsequently learned that Cortana, who died in the previous game, that was the whole point of the previous game, is actually still alive, and now she's evil, and she's found a few thousand giant ship robots built by the prehistoric aliens, and now she's going to take over the universe.
Okay.
Hey, like, while you talk, I can't really imagine while we're watching this, that's Bilbo Baggins talking about this as he nonchalantly kills these goblins. And he's like, there's nothing else better to do.
He's just giving us the history of Halo.
He doesn't have anything better to do while killing goblins in this boring ass town, except for Halo.
It's kind of perfect.
Now, the scene where Bilbo Baggins explains how the Halo franchise went wrong was really integral to Tolkien's vision for the story. So I had to
because Peter Jackson actually wanted to do a Halo movie, so it's actually together.
Jesus fucking Christ!
He didn't just want to do a Halo movie. Peter Jackson legitimately tried to make a Halo TV show. They kept trying to extend the Halo license beyond video games and novels. And let me tell you something, it just doesn't work. I'm sorry, but it's essentially a less interesting version of Starship Troopers when you get right down to it. You have some interesting stuff with the Covenant, which is it's a covenant of different alien species who are like united under a similar religious goal or ideology, and there's room for conflict and tension in there. Like they have a caste system, and there's drama in that, so it's like, oh, there's your core for a Halo TV show. That's where interesting shit happens. But you can't do that because nobody apparently wants to watch a show about alien politic drama. So you have it from the perspective of the humans, and the UNSC is more boring Starship Troopers, and the Spartans are literally less charismatic robots.
Also, I did Raves is asleep, and I also just my character.
I'm sorry.
He's legitimately asleep this time because he's not saying dead shit.
Me at the cider house, Bilbo.
Also, I got the eyes my
character.
Oh my goodness.
This is covered in blood.
Jesus Christ.
thieves broke into the armory. They stole.
But yeah,
many
that's
weapons,
generally known for
including
being
my
covered
black
with blood.
arrow. The black arrow is
Yeah.
of dwarf make. It has been in my family for generations. Some
Oh.
say there's an enchantment on it. I would not
So-
have this filth laid
So
claim
that
to it.
happened. That's
This
your
cider
another
house
6
is
degrees
full
of
of useful
separation.
information,
Peter
but
Jackson
its
tried to make
patrons know
a
better
Halo
than to talk to
TV
me.
show.
Go inside.
You know
And
what makes this
belong to
extra
me.
funny is that Blake has Hobbit hair.
Yeah, I do.
I've seen it.
I have Hobbit hair.
Lake, why are you doing? What are you doing in Lake Town if you're so bored?
I'm not in. I'm in the exact opposite of Lake Town. I'm just here talking about Halo because.
Like
There's.
El Paso, there isn't water for miles.
Yeah, no, there.
So when he's thirsty, he has to go crawling in the Casey in
I
Kentucky
used
for
to
water.
play, right?
Yeah, that's what happens.
You ruined it.
But so.
If he's thirsty in general, he has to go to
Thieves took all
KC.
the weapons in town.
Oh damn!
Oh.
Warehouse. I bet one of
You're
these
welcome for
guys
that,
is
Gavin.
there.
I saw an opportunity to blame Kay for a sex joke, and I took it.
So Halo 5 came out, and
I hear the stolen weapons.
everyone was largely disappointed by the lack of Master Chief. I didn't have a problem with that. In fact, I thought the game could have been made better with less Master Chief. But the fact that we kept bouncing between two equally uninteresting squad of Spartans, because this was also near the tail end of the cooperative campaign boom of the beginning of this console generation. So everything had to have like online co-op stuff to it. It had elements of that, which, by the way, you could have had a great opportunity for some. The 343, when they made Halo 5, they were already scraping the bottom of the barrel. They just pluck out characters who have technically been dead in the lore for like 15 years, and they're just back. Like, hey, do you remember Blue Team? You know how they've been gone for like years now? They're just back. We're not going to give you any reason. They're just around.
Why, yeah, why not?
Even though in the novels they've been a thing.
Report to me.
Oh yeah, I know they've been in the novels. That's what I'm referring to. They've been in the novels, and in the novels they've been absent. Like they've been
Yeah,
missing.
because they're all on Onyx and shit.
Yeah,
Shield World, the place you're supposed to survive the Halo rings.
exactly. And the game, they're just back. Again, there's absolutely no rhyme or there's no rhyme or reason that's presented in the game for why anything is the way it is. And here's the kicker, and here's how you know, at least in my opinion, I don't know if Will can back me up on this as an actual writer. If you as a content creator need to tell people to look to external sources to understand why things are happening in your story, I feel
You have fucking
failed.
failed.
Yeah.
A story should not need a fucking map.
Unless
And
it's
it's
a
not
map
just-
of the world that the story is taking place in.
Yeah, like a literal map can be helpful. But I mean, like,
If I have to read another book to understand your book, you wrote a shit book.
here's what's gonna be egregious to you, Will, I think. Not only did you have to read one book to understand what was going on in Halo 5, you had to read 3 books, a comic book, and a web series.
They are just demanding little fucks, aren't they?
You needed to have 6 different resources to understand what was happening going into this game.
Buy all of my shit!
So we're starting there.
So it's like Kingdom Hearts.
No, it's not as bad as Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, it's
Kingdom
bad as
Hearts.
Kingdom Hearts.
I know Kingdom
So
Hearts.
here's the thing: if you play all the games in Kingdom Hearts, you still don't understand the story.
Yeah,
You just don't understand the story. Trust me.
you can understand what's going on in Halo 5, but as to understanding like who's who and what's going on precisely, like at the start, you have no goddamn clue. But the game essentially just throws all of that into the garbage after the first 45 minutes. It's like, hey, this bad guy that you're chasing after, he's dead. Oh, hey, those guys over there, they're dead too. oh hey, we're gonna quickly exposition in the most clunky, awkward way everyone's personality traits. Okay, we're done with that. Oh, here's the narrative thrust of the game presented extremely awkwardly for some reason. There you go. There's no. When I played, and I played it a couple times.
I had to turn off the poo gas generators, by the way.
Good.
It's funny because I'm talking about poo.
Talking about shit. Talking about shit.
Every plot point that happens in Halo 5 just sort of happens. And I think the most egregious and prime example of that failure to have things cohesively and narratively satisfyingly happen is the Warden Eternal character / mini-boss in Halo 5. There is a character / monster / boss robot guy named the Warden Eternal. His deal is that he has thousands of backup robot bodies for himself, and that he can... It's always him whenever you fight him. Like, you defeat one body, and then he just uploads himself to a new body and he can show up again. That's
my new body will defeat you!
That's a neat idea. In concept, that's a neat idea. Of this mini-boss who can just sort of show up at random in a level. That's a neat idea. Like, okay, you're going along, you're shooting some aliens in the face, like you do, because you always got to do that in a Halo game. And then suddenly this boss just shows up, and it's like, oh my god! And like, what was trivial and not even worth thinking about is suddenly become a life or death struggle. It's like, oh my god. This is the way that this is actually implemented in the game is so obvious and tired that even after the first boss fight, you're kind of done with him. He shows up in a very obvious boss arena for the first time. You shoot him in the back because all bosses have a weak spot in the back, like they do. And I've had this happen so much to me, but it always like feels so discouraging.
No, you're fine.
So you fight him once. He has no interesting gimmick or anything. You just shoot him in the back, you're done, and then you move on. An hour later, he shows up again in another very obvious boss arena, and you do the exact same thing to fight him. And then he shows up again an hour later, only to up the ante again. No, there's technically upping the ante. There's just two of them now. But it's in a boss arena that's twice as big, so it feels virtually the same as you did fighting him before. You just shoot him in the back, and then he shows up again at the end. And it's like, oh my god, we need to up the ante again somehow. What do we do? There's another one, so you fight 3 of them at once. But you still are doing technically the same thing each time. It's literally overusing a boss in the most literal way you could possibly imagine. You're literally fighting him the same way, collectively 12 times.
I'm still thinking that this is Bilbo saying all of this to himself as he's walking through this fucking
You are
level.
welcome. You're fucking welcome.
He's just, you know what, Bilbo, he's played the Halo series back in the Shire. There's nothing really for him to do or think about while he's here, and he's just thinking about the Halo games. He's just reminiscing all of this to himself and just thinking out loud as he's doing all these menial little tasks.
I can't not think that now.
Now, when adapting the Hobbit... Wait, I already did that joke.
So Halo 5 Guardians ends... It just sort of ends. It peters out. It breaks its own formula. In the 343 Halo-made games, they begin with a CGI cutscene and they end with a CGI cutscene. Well, they break new ground in that the last level opens with a CGI cutscene, and then we have one last level that we gotta play, which, God, I barely remember. I think we ran down a hallway, but like the hallway was vertical in like a thing that was going down, so like it was really wonky. Like you couldn't jump, which is really frustrating because they still forced you into jump puzzles. But like because of the wonky nature of like the physics engine, I think if you didn't jump exactly when the game wanted you to, the game would think that you were falling in parallel with the object that you were fighting on. And because of Halo's wonky physics system, players fall slower than a lot of other objects, so you would jump off of the object and start falling more slowly than the object would itself, and then like it would kill you because you got out of bounds for the level.
I just want to point out real quick that sometimes in this level, it is so dark that not even Sting lights up where you're going, and you can't see anything. It's bullshit.
Which is funny I mentioned physics, because there is virtually no physics in Halo 5 Guardians.
Guys,
Yeah.
I am muting Raves. Can you please not let me forget to unmute him when he wakes back up?
No problem.
I muted him a long time ago.
I've kept him on because it's funny. just 1 second to break the Halo conversation, just for 1 second. Is this the plot of this Lake Town quest? A goblin stole the black arrow?
A little bit, yeah.
And now you have to get it back?
Yeah, now it is.
I am surprised Peter Jackson did not insert that bullshit in there. I am genuinely surprised that it's not a plot thread that was in the actual fucking movie.
Well, he didn't use an actual fucking arrow either.
That's right, they used a javelin thing.
He used a wind lance or whatever the fuck the thing was.
It
was like, because I guess just having Smog have the waistcoat of gems was too fun for their fucking movie, so they had to have these fucking dwarven ballistas.
Yeah.
I believe
Yeah.
they weren't even ballistas. They were more like giant fireplace pokers.
They were like custom ballistas.
They were bullshit is what they were.
That's right. You know what? Here's a chicken or the egg question for you. When Peter Jackson made the Hobbit movies, do you think that they said, hey, it's kind of lame for a dragon to be taken out by just an arrow, so we need to scale those up to look more awesome and badass? Or was it a logistical problem because they thought no one's going to be scared of a dragon that's classically dragon-sized anymore, so we need to make him 5 times the size of a jet airliner to be scary? And there's no conceivable way that an arrow could take down something that big in one shot. So what do you think came first?
I'd say that they got Sirish in as a consultant, but not every single named character and then masturbate to his own reflection, so that can't be it.
Malak who spends time in the cider house.
I think it was that they didn't think anybody would believe that a dragon could be taken down by one arrow. Even though in the actual story of The Hobbit, it's explicitly told to you that it only took Smaug down because it was in the exact spot right over his heart.
Your lovely vision this night.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that would be clever, and they can't have that. It has to be badass.
Yeah.
To be fair,
To
be fair though, the black arrow is a very large arrow. To be fair, it's not a ballista. It's just a big, intimidating arrow.
Yeah, no, it's technically a large, intimidating
But
arrow.
it's something you could shoot out of a bow, not out of some weird rigged contraption you make with your son's legs. Remember that fucking scene?
That scene
nonsense?
is like, what the fuck are you doing in the
It's a
first place?
regular-sized arrow, but it's scaled for a guy who's 20 feet tall. That's something that Jackson didn't really adapt when he depicted Bard.
I must find their heir.
Also, he didn't want to include the prospect of talking animals, so the thrush couldn't tell him where the weak spot was, because that's too
clever
fun.
and fun about the story.
That's too fun for anything that Peter Jackson does, so couldn't do that.
I'm not sure if that's a Peter Jackson thing or if it's a studio thing.
It's both.
Whoever the
'cause
fuck
when-
it was, it's your problem, and you're an asshole, and I hate you.
It is partially a Peter Jackson thing, because Peter Jackson's whole approach to Lord of the Rings was like paring it down and trying to make it feel realistic and grounded, because that was the critique of old fantasy films from the 80s, was that they were too campy, they were too distanced from reality.
It's fantasy!
And like Lord of the Rings, the Lord of the Rings films. This is one of the reasons why like my Lord of the Rings Between Logic and Enchantment article is taking so long to write. Is there's so much to fucking talk about. Like one of the big effects those movies had on the fantasy genre is the idea that fantasy has to be grounded now.
Yeah,
it's fucking
everything
fantasy.
it has to feel like it could have actually happened. As opposed to literally specifically being shit that can't happen.
I remember
That's in the name.
I remember watching what's that YouTuber guy who talks about swords and medieval stuff?
Bob Denver.
Yes. I remember he did a critique. He was looking at the World of Warcraft movie, and I remember when that came out, there was a lot of people who felt it was so gauche, like visually and aesthetically, because it was more. It tried to match the aesthetic of the Warcraft games, which is very cartoony and stylized. It tried to match that, but people were like, I remember some people complaining that it seemed too silly for a serious fantasy movie, because you had people with giant plate armor and swinging around huge swords.
That movie isn't perfect, but I kind of love how it just thrusts you right into some really high video game style fantasy bullshit, and it's just like, accept this, and you have to be like, okay. Like within minutes in that movie, you're with this fucking green-skinned orc guy, and he's with his little orc baby and his orc wife, and they're looking very much like video game orcs. And there's just like, accept the emotional moment between these CGI orcs, and it's like, all right, we'll go there.
It was very 80s like fantasy, and it was
Like,
kind of good.
It has a bit too much plot and definitely too many characters for one movie. But I do genuinely kind of love the Warcraft movie.
You know that the reason there's so much plot and so many characters is because they're trying to make it a Lord of the Rings style mega trilogy thing.
Well, I think it was also because like they were trying to do justice to both the Horde and the Alliance, because those are the two big factions of Warcraft, and you don't want to like fuck over one for the other.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: they should have just focused on the Horde, because the Horde story and Horde characters were interesting, and the Alliance characters were not.
You do the movie that it goes in depth with one, and then because you can always almost unanimously bank on China these days saving movies that really should not be saved.
And China fucking loved Warcraft.
It's like, okay, here's the one movie, and then we're gonna have the Alliance stuff in the sequel. There you go. Like,
Is there even a sequel?
I cannot, but I don't know.
No, there's not.
Yeah, they're probably, but that's the logic you have. Like I say, just funny. Speaking of China box office, I can't help but find funny that apparently Star Wars movies do awful in China.
That's because I'm wondering if it's maybe because Star Wars movies fucking botch Chinese philosophy so fucking badly.
That's something I'm genuinely curious about. Like, if at all possible, I would love to like interview Chinese audiences and ask them why they're not terribly fond of this series. Like, do you think they've had exposure to the original trilogy, or did they just were they just thrust into The Force Awakens?
Apparently, they're titling the Chinese releases of Star Wars movies to try and not capitalize on the Star Wars name in China, to trick Chinese people into not thinking it's a Star Wars movie.
Well, I have an important question for you.
Yeah?
What is this pointy-eared, gray-haired lady from?
Some show called Owl House, and I have no idea what it's about, but I want her to marry me.
Okay, I'm going to watch that soon.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know what channel it's on, and I don't know what the actual plot is, but I know that lady looks like Ryoko if her hair was gray, and I'm into it.
She looks like a vampire, Ryoko.
Anyways, I know in China they've banned all ghost or supernatural related movies.
Oh yeah, that's right. They got some weird deal about not having ghosts.
Yeah, that's why the last Ghostbusters movie wasn't allowed in China.
That's dumb.
So the reason, when it bombed hard in the United States, it had no Chinese way to bring itself back.
That's another thing that I'm really curious to know why that is the case.
I think it's both to do with Chinese folk superstition combined with the Communist Party is trying to suppress local religious bodies. Since Chinese belief in like ancestor spirits and hungry ghosts and shit is an integral part of certain New Age religious movements that the Communist Party is trying to repress.
That's a fascinating subject that we could probably talk about instead of Lake Town.
Instead of Lake Town. Because there's nothing to talk about!
Why is the world so horrible? Can I punch it?
The world is so horrible because it's all a simulation. And,
And
you
given
know,
that Star Wars has
how nice are you to your Sims? The answer is not very.
also given that Star Wars has Force ghosts, I'm wondering if the Chinese cuts of Star Wars has that shit cut out.
That's a fascinating question. Yeah. That's actually a legitimately good question. Like, is the original trilogy even available in China? Like, yeah, no, that's fascinating. I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious to know, like, where China was first introduced to Star Wars. Like, did they get imports of the original trilogy? Did they start at the prequels, or did they start at Force Awakens?
We know that they got the prequels because they had that amazing retranslation that was floating around the internet. That one.
Oh my god!
Backstroke of the West.
Backstroke of the West.
Oh my god. Okay, that would explain some things.
It explains nothing.
No, it kind of does. Okay, Star Wars is a legacy thing here in the West. Like, it was the thing of the late 70s and the early 80s. Like, it has become a cultural cornerstone for us.
Yeah,
I know. I was there.
Whereas it with China in the 70s and 80s, the United States was mostly cut off from it because, Cold War shit.
So the reason Star Wars almost always does well here is because it's so, like, entrenched in us that it's like, oh, it's Star Wars. Well, you gotta go see Star Wars. Like, it just inherently makes money here because it's so. It's such an.
It's a religion.
Part.
It is a fucking religion in this country.
It's a bit of a cult,
it's basically a religious cult.
I mean, complete to the point where, like a fucking holiday for other religions, stores will fucking decorate for the release of a Star Wars movie.
Oh my god! I never even thought about it.
I have, and it kind of like I love Star Wars, and it kind of disgusts me.
So yeah,
it works in a Walmart. It is disgusting.
But yeah, so then that does create the fascinating, like, the issue for Star Wars overseas is it doesn't have that inherent backing, so the movies have to try to stand on their own. We're seeing now that a lot of that Star Wars has that individually the Star Wars films struggle to stand on their own. That's actually really neat to think about. Yeah.
This game is doing that bullshit thing where they give you a puzzle where they give you four or five colors, and they tell you the combination by telling you what should be next to what. And I hate these fucking bullshit puzzles.
Speaking of puzzles, just to close off the Halo talk, fast forward from when Halo 5 Guardians came out. It came out, again, marginal success. People bought it. It was my first real gripe with the current generation games and the fact that they do not compress those goddamn things. Halo 5 Guardians on my Xbox One takes up 197 gigabytes of hard drive space.
Jesus fucking Christ.
It's possibly only seconded by Gears of War 4, which again is another current generation game that feels they don't have to compress anything. And that also peters just shy of like 200 gigs. I can't stand it, honestly. Like, I don't care. Compress things, game developers. Jesus Christ.
I don't care for those Gears of War chunk men.
Yeah, no. You know what? And what the Gears of War chunk men are made all the more upsetting by the fact that they have to be next to actually proportioned female characters. So it makes the chunk men feel weirder.
For a second there, I thought you were talking about boobs, and I was ready to fight you on these behalf.
No. But yeah, years later, at last year's E3, there is a teaser trailer for the new Halo game, Halo Infinite. We're not even putting the numbers on it anymore. And it's essentially a teaser.
No, they're putting a number on it.
Oh, yeah.
The numbers.
Yeah, you're right. So they reveal that Halo Infinite is happening, and it's only a teaser trailer, but it's a teaser trailer that also shows off the new engine that they're building for this game. And let me tell you, that was about the same year as Anthem, I think it was, and like, y'all, when you watch stuff out of E3, you gotta take it with such a grain of salt. This isn't just this is you, the audience, watching this days, months, possibly years later. Don't believe anything you see at E3 anymore. That's the big takeaway that you learn from this, is those are filled with lies. If it looks like garbage, it's probably real. If you're looking at something and you're thinking, wow, that looks really amazing, truly this is a next generation game, it's a fraud. It is a complete fraud. And I say
okay,
that,
but what about the lovely lady that was on screen promoting the game? She was helming.
Oh, the Japanese woman?
There's no way that's faked.
I know nothing about that game, but that lady is really sweet.
Keanu Reeves, because you know Keanu Reeves can't be boss. He gives all his shit away.
Okay, the Japanese woman was real, because she's actually a real physical person. I suppose I should say that goes to big published, quote-unquote, conventional AAA games. So your Halos, your Gears of War, basically big things that you recognize from major publishers or studios that you know the names of, probably frauds.
Yeah. And sadly, Keanu Reeves, not actually real. Keanu Reeves is a lie your parents tell you, just like the Tooth Fairy and Santa. He doesn't actually exist. Every time you think Keanu Reeves is in your house giving you presents, it's actually your parents.
When I refuse to believe that Cyberpunk 2077 is a real game. I'm sure it is. I know CD Projekt Red genuinely does their damnedest to make their games top-notch quality. Everything I've seen from that, I can't be convinced is real. I'm sorry, but we're living in the age of Anthem and Fallout 76. Games that look like the Cyberpunk 2077 demo from last year, the 45-minute long demo, that kind of garbage might have happened in a better timeline of video games, or 15 years from now. That's how I see that. Until I can actually see people buy, and until I see some terrible Let's Player play Cyberpunk 2077, I'm convinced that it's not real.
Hey gamers, I'm playing Cyberpunk 77. By the way, I'm gonna shout the N-word now.
Yes, that's when I'll know that that's real. When I see some terrible YouTuber doing a Let's Play of it, and he's extremely obnoxious about it the whole time, and he talks over every bit of dialogue, and constantly does the woohoo, like crazy sound effects. And
So like what we're doing now?
Yes. And as a former YouTuber myself, I should know. I did this. We tried to get monetized, and we just failed in every conceivable way.
We're all YouTubers now.
Oh no!
Hallie, what have you done to me?
Suffer.
Anyways, the Halo Infinite was teased. People were so excited for this year's E3. We're just coming off the tails of it. They were convinced that we were finally going to see more Halo Infinite stuff, and that it would be coming out later this year because that's the pattern with Halo games. And then we get a 5-minute long CG render story sort of trailer that doesn't actually tell us anything. And that's how I knew, oh, they're embarrassed by what they've made, and they're trying to hide it until 2020. They dusted off the original Master Chief look. They just threw him back in the old suit and just hoped that we wouldn't notice the change. It's going to be a return to form. It's literally going to just be Halo 1 again, only this time Cortana's a bad guy. That's what's going to happen. That's what the game is going to be. I can feel it in my bones. It's going to be a tremendous disappointment.
Like, you're being so cynical, you're making me look optimistic.
And you know what else? You know why I'm pretty sure they delayed it to 2020? Is because originally Halo Infinite was going to be a Battle Royale game, and they saw that was finally starting to fail, and they had to scrap that and throw it in the garbage, and now they have to rebuild the entire game in less than a year.
Fallout 76 is going to be a Battle Royale.
Oh no, that actually happened.
Yep. It's the nuclear, that's what the nuclear winter update is.
Yep.
It's a battle royale?
Yeah.
Fallout 76.
And from reports, it's a bad Battle Royale.
Of course!
It's a battle royale.
Bethesda doesn't know how to make a shooter. They had to subcontract the Doom guys to make Fallout 4 somewhat playable.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. But that doesn't know how to do it, but the modders do.
You can't mod 76.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Oh.
Remember when they turned Skyrim and Fallout into a tower defense game? That was fun.
But yeah, no, I don't want to be negative about this, but I've been burned by video games so many times and so frequently and consistently that I hear things and I'm like, that's too good to be true. That's too good to be true. And then I'm right.
I mean,
I'm sorry, I saw the Anthem demo way back in the day. The very first time we saw Anthem, I was looking at that. That's too good to be true. That there's something off about all of this. I was right.
Sound like a conspiracy theorist.
I had a suspicion.
Blake is in full Pepe Sylvia mode right now.
I had a suspicion about Destiny back in 2013. And I was right.
Shit is it's Destiny.
Oh.
Blake has a tinfoil hat on right now.
I don't have a tinfoil hat on right now. I have no hat because I don't need a hat.
Tinfoil Tuesday, presented by Blake.
The gamers, they're coming for you. The gamers in black.
He has a Spartan helmet made out of tinfoil.
You know what? It's better than the Spartan helmet that I almost got for the Halo 3 pre-order.
I got that thing.
Oh, the
Thing
cat
is, it was
helmet.
I was supposed to just buy it with my own money, but here's what happened. I was basically forced to work with my stepfather for a summer because I want to be home. Like, no, you have to work with your stepfather because he needs help. When my deadbeat mother stayed at home and did drugs. Anyways, I was gonna get that as Christmas present. The Halo 3 thing for Christmas present, and 3 months later, I finally got it. It's like, oh, it's not all your Christmas present, but also it's also taking up all the money we owe you.
Oh.
What?
Assholes.
Yeah.
That's not a Christmas present then.
It's a delayed Christmas present, and we used. Oh, you don't owe us any money more because we used the money that we owed you to buy a Christmas present. Bye. Anyways, if some of you want to donate to the Please Feed K Fund, my PayPal is over here, or most of you know my address.
Yeah, it's. God, I had a friend who was. I had several friends who were so proud of that legendary edition of Halo 3 that they had it on their shelves and all that stuff. They would carry it around with them.
Jeez.
That was the young foolish days. Well, at the time it wasn't foolish. Games hadn't started to betray us yet. But
I've been betrayed.
I've been legitimately betrayed by video games, damn it.
Like,
You know?
I love you, but I'm gonna post something for you.
Okay.
Oh, you're gonna hurt him. Don't hurt him.
You
Yeah.
hurt him. Why do you hurt him?
You still like Anthem, Blake.
No, that's fair.
I like Anthem. I like Destiny. I like Division. I like all them shitty games.
That's okay. You're allowed to be wrong as long as you like it.
Like you're too tense.
That's
You
exactly
should
what
brush
you
my hair.
I should.
It's okay. I like Terraformers, and I know I'm wrong there.
I don't even know.
And Raves is asleep, and he can't tell me otherwise. Fuck you.
Shit. I may have been playing Rune Factory for a significant chunk of this, but I just noticed that Bilbo's doing the slider puzzle, so he must be doing the Village of Hawnleaf DLC for Dragon Age Origins right now.
Sure.
Can help us.
Who's this Snape-looking
I just hope
motherfucker?
what we've given him is enough to keep.
Oh, don't you remember Severus Snape, the famous character from The Hobbit?
You shut the fuck up.
Peter Jackson talked about how he thought Severus Snape was really one of the more vital characters in the Hobbit franchise, and really needed to do justice to J.R.R. Tolkien.
God damn it.
Severus Snape.
You know, J.R.R. Tolkien said that Snape was a gift to write.
You have the map.
Also, turns out Snape was bi the whole time. J.R.R. Tolkien tweeted that out the other day.
And he had an extremely sexual relationship with Filch.
You could have an Alan Rickman Christmas. I will be immersed in enticing lava. But about now, Emmy must be wondering what the hell is wrong with her brother.
Jesus fucking Christ, TT.
Now I can't remember. Was the Basilisk in the second or the third?
Second.
It was in the seventh. It was in the 10th one.
Okay.
Yeah, the Basilisk appeared in the Two Towers.
Okay.
And it turned out that Frodo could talk to it because of the piece of Voldemort inside of him.
Okay.
Still more sense inside of a little bit of all of this.
I just found this, and I find the timing funny.
And then after Frodo cut off the basilisk's head, two baby basilisks spewed out from the neck stump, and then Gamera took them to a remote island to live out their days in peace.
Because Gamera is a friend of all children. And that's the real message of Lord of the Rings.
No, I forgot. When Darth Vader appears in the third Lord of the Rings movie, like, what exactly was his relationship to Aragorn again?
He's the one who converted Aragorn.
There was absolutely no relationship. Gareth Edwards just wanted Darth Vader to appear because he thought it would be cool.
Okay. You know what? That makes sense, because, he just sort of appears. There's no doesn't really impact.
And he hacks through some Riders of Rohan to just show off how badass he is.
That's right.
Okay, but
it kind of doesn't make sense if you haven't already seen Empire Strikes Back.
Oh my god. Yeah, this is how much I give a shit about this fucking level. I'm not even going to even attempt to stop you.
The dwarves will
It's
try
not
to
even
slay
a
the
token
dragon.
effect.
If they do, then the gold
A
is
token.
What the absolute fuck is this Lake Town subplot?
I don't know. I don't even
Why does
care.
it take so much time?
They needed another level.
Men.
Did they really though?
Okay, so question: did this game Peter Jackson this level, or did Peter Jackson this game that?
I'm gonna be honest.
I don't know
surprised.
I don't know where you're going with it, so I'm just gonna say that the game petered out.
I am surprised that Peter Jackson didn't write this part of the game.
No, but it's because it's Bilbo doing things, so of course it wasn't Peter Jackson writing
That
this.
is true.
So where did Galadriel get her sonic screwdriver?
You shouldn't stay up late at night waiting for that commercial that shows it. You know those commercials you get in the middle of the night that nobody ever sees because they're in the middle of the fucking night?
Galadriel got her sonic screwdriver from me. It was a wedding present.
Aw, that's adorable.
Yeah, I knew she was a huge Doctor Who fan, but like she thought that like she wouldn't be like making good appearances if she like actually bought Doctor Who stuff. Like the other elves would laugh at her. So I got her a sonic screwdriver, and she just yeah, it was pretty great.
I still hear Raven snoring like a freaking.
Yep.
Galadriel would want to be Doctor Who, but Sauron ruined it for her by being a part of the Super Gulak fandom.
Holy shit.
Yeah, she spent a good chunk of time just yelling, not at me, but to me about how fucking Saruman keeps talking about how 11th Doctor is the greatest Doctor, when we all know it's 10.
Jesus.
And she's like, and then Gandalf doesn't help because he chimes in about how he likes 4th Doctor, and we get it, Gandalf. Tom Baker's a delight, but like those old Doctor Who specials go on way too fucking long.
Who would have ever thought
Again, I am
so
just
small
imagining
could be
this
so
Bilbo
useful.
talking to himself.
Good work, Baggins.
No, this entire level.
So how's the new female Doctor?
Father to sons
That's all right.
forged in the lonely mountain.
It's better than Doctor Who under fucking Moffat. I will say that.
I liked that childhood fable approach to the Doctor a little bit, but when that's all there is to him now, it's.
I didn't mind the storybook feel of Moffat's Doctor Who. I minded the fact that all the characters lost dimensions the more they appeared and became just the Doctor's fanboys.
Are we getting Madame Vastra and her wife again? Because I liked those two.
I liked them up until they devolved to the point where every appearance that they had was just them telling the latest companion, "You have to love the Doctor. He's the most important man in the world."
He's the most important asshole in the world.
I mean, that's the only character Moffat can fucking write.
Okay, I am doing something incredibly stupid, and I'm going down here for all these fucking courage gems.
Stephen Moffat is the only person who can write a worse Mina Murray than fucking Francis Ford Coppola, and I am terrified to see what he does to one of my favorite characters. Again.
Again.
Because he already fucked up Sherlock Holmes beyond fucking repair in pop culture.
Wasn't that the Sherlock Holmes as depicted by Benedict Cucumberface?
Yes.
Cucumberface!
And now, so many people are like, "Oh, I love it, it's so much truer to the books." And it's like, Sherlock Holmes would never abuse a crying witness. Jesus H. Christ.
Also, a boomerang.
A fucking boomerang.
I feel like that's what you're talking about is an interesting phenomenon that seems to happen where it's like people don't actually read the source material but just assume that the most nasty depiction of a character in other media forms is the most true to the book.
Mm-hmm.
Like we seem to have this cultural idea that like book depictions of things are so like gritty and like dark grounded.
There's a very interesting case study to be made of Sherlock Holmes because every adaptation of Sherlock Holmes except the Great Mouse Detective seems to take one trait of Sherlock and exaggerate the fuck out of it and ignore all the others.
So I got a question about that. Is it an adaptation on the grounds that he's living in the same house as Sherlock and therefore he's not Sherlock?
What?
The Great Mouse Detective. Basil is living in the house of Sherlock Holmes. So
okay, you did not specify the Great Mouse Detective Act.
You said Great Mouse Detective, so
yeah, I said that like several sentences ago after talking about other shit.
Well, it's kind of hard to interrupt you with that. Also, I'm trying to be polite by not interrupting you.
Yeah, I'm just saying you should have specified you were talking about the Great Mouse Detective.
You said it was a great adaptation, though.
I did.
So how's an adaptation if Sherlock Holmes is in it in a separate character?
Because Basil of Baker Street, even if his name is not Sherlock Holmes,
And he's
is
the same
Sherlock
character.
Holmes. Just
But
because
he's not Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes is like
Let him finish.
he is, except in name and species, the exact same character. He's a great detective in Victorian England. The whole joke of him living in Baker Street in Sherlock Holmes's house is the idea that there is literally a mouse version of Sherlock Holmes living in the same house as the human version of Sherlock Holmes. That is the joke. His name Basil even comes from Basil Rathbone, who at the time was the most famous actor to play Sherlock Holmes, and the actor who played Sherlock Holmes in the most things.
Said farewell as the dwarves set
Basil
out
of
to
Baker
the
Street
mountain.
is literally
They
a
passed
mouse
through the
Sherlock
lands
Holmes.
destroyed by the dragon. The desolation
We
smiled.
are finally out of Lake
High
Town,
in the
and
mountain,
the next video
Bilbo
is
saw
actually
thrush
smog.
cracking snails.
So,
thank God.
As the sun set
we
on
are
the
out
other
of
side
Lake
the
Town.
Dune's
The
den,
hell is over.
Bilbo saw a keyhole appear on the side of the
We're
mountain.
about to
called
witness
for
the
the dwarves.
desolation of Smaug.
They opened
I
So
promise
join us
you.
next time.
into
I
Smaug's
promise you
lair.
that was the most boring level in this entire game, which is why we shat talk over it. So, I hope you enjoyed
So-
it. Enjoy fucking Lake Town.